Welcome back to another episode of Wrist Check Podcast. We've got a special one for you this evening.
Yes.
We have Eddie Goziker of Wrist Aficionado. One half.
That was good.
That was good.
I was like, whoa.
I don't know if you know, but I do this.
Yes. You've been doing it for quite some time.
Yeah. I want to say thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for
I've been looking forward to this one. I've actually had the pleasure of visiting your establishment, and I had a good time, but we'll get into more of that and your story. But first, as is tradition, we must start with our honorary wrist check. And Eddie, I don't know if you know, but you happen to be sitting next to the man who never repeats a watch.
Ever?
Ever is what they say.
Is what they say.
Now, if we're keeping count, it's a different story. But Rashawn, what do you got on the wrist tonight, sir? You're repeating a watch.
I'm repeating a watch.
Sorry, Tristan.
But I'm wearing the trusty Cellini.
Yeah, beautiful.
The Danos is my favorite. This is a watch that I'm just putting back on my wrist because I had a new ad.
Let me say something. I noticed you changed the strap on that again, so I got to talk to Mary.
Yes. So we got to talk to Mary because the red strap is where it's at.
I think so.
But tonight I decided to wear this piece. Holds very sentiment to my heart. Definitely a watch that I enjoy wearing whenever I put it on. I've shared my love affection for this watch so many times.
Sure.
And as Mary enjoys the new ad.
Oh.
Yeah. So she's rocking it for now.
Okay.
But
so he got a new Rolex recently, vintage.
Which?
yes. Birth year, date just, blue Vignette dial.
Beautiful.
Diamonds,
Yeah.
all
It works.
steel.
But they say diamonds is a girl's best friend. So
Yes.
it's always with Mary right now.
Yeah, so it's
Respect.
with Mary right now. So
That's a good piece.
while she enjoys it, I'll go back to the trusty Cellini.
Love
okay.
it. I love it.
We'll save our guest of honor for last. I'll go next. I'm rocking a new watch.
A really good one.
It's funny. So I'm wearing the Tudor Alinghi Red Bull Racing Chrono Pelagos. It's a mouthful.
Wow.
Yeah, wow's right. When this watch first released, I fell in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it would be too big for my wrist. And then we saw a mutual friend with one. And I was like, you know what? It's kind of good.
Yes.
And so I've been looking at it for a while. And we recently spoke about this. It just so happened that it one popped up, and it popped up for a really good price.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, it was, I respect Tudor and we have friends there, so I won't say what I paid for it, but I couldn't say no.
Yes.
And it's, to me, the ultimate dad watch. It just makes me feel more dad than I already feel, And so, this is like the perfect weekender. I've been playing with the Chrono all weekend. I love it. It's fantastic. It's super lightweight. The carbon case is really nice. It's also got this titanium bezel with the titanium crown and pushers. It's just a lot of fun. Makes me think about the race that's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of makes me feel like maybe I could get on there and go yachting. I don't know.
Yes.
We'll see.
It's clean.
Definitely,
I like it.
definitely got the fit for it.
So this is a thing. I have to dress according to the watch that I wear. And so I was feeling it, and I was like, okay, this seems appropriate.
Yeah.
And this is this evening's fit. Eddie, you got something special on the wrist.
Very, very special.
It's special. It's special. This is it's an older RM 30.
Ooh.
I prefer the 30s to the 11 just for my wrist size. It's a kind of a mid-size for me.
Yep.
No chronograph, basic 3 hands. Manual one. Got a little
Respect.
power reserve. I just like the colors on it.
It's beautiful.
So I like the blue and the white combo. That's it.
Yeah.
The blue ceramic. It's wearable, light,
Super sporty.
sporty.
Super summer watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much room.
Cool dad vibes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll take that. I'll take that.
It's funny,
My,
too.
my girls will be proud. My girls.
There we go.
Because Richard Mille is starting to get into that space of vintage, right? They're coming around to the time where their early timepieces will be considered vintage,
Yeah.
right? They're like 20 years
Like neo.
old.
I guess is it?
It's like
neo vintage.
Neo
Yeah.
vintage. But like to your point, like the older RMs, the RM30s, of course, like we know the the popular models, the Watson, the Bubba Watson, those pieces are what's everyone's after the Nadal, but the RM30 is like, where's that?
Well, they just remade this now. So it's been a while. They've had the RM30 in the same configuration for a bit. It was within the last year that they came out with a 3001.
Right.
Yeah.
Where they changed the dial design a bit on it. But this has been around. This is a staple for a good while for them.
Mhm.
That's a great piece.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, I guess, their entry
Yeah.
for men's. Price-wise, it was always priced well.
Mhm.
It was a good way to get in and still have a midsize.
It's really cool that they've now rounded that corner, though. I think we should do an episode on Richard Mille. I think people would get a kick out of that.
That'd be
Yeah.
dope.
Super.
Yo, you know Bezel just launched auctions?
Really?
Yeah, they did. You could bid on watches inside the app. They give you notifications on auction drops, and it's still authenticated. Oh, shoot, I won.
Yo, what you win?
Man, don't worry about me, man. Go download the app. Go visit getbezel.com.
Oh, come on, man.
All right. So, Eddie, Wrist Aficionado, you guys were founded in 2018,
2018-ish, yep.
and online retailer.
Only. And
Only.
Just only online.
And now you have 3 brick and mortar locations. I'm super interested in the story, but before we get into Wrist Aficionado, I kind of want to hear where it all started with you. Where did your love affair with watches begin?
So, like, I guess I started as a collector when I graduated college, you know?
Okay.
Got into watches. I had basic Rolexes. I had like a Datejust, and then I had a Cartier Roadster. That was my first entry into it eventually.
Cartier Roadster's fire.
Yes. Yeah, I still have my first Cartier
Yeah.
Roadster.
Tight.
Yeah. That was my first kind of collector's kind of entry into watches. I worked in watches. Worked at Tourneau when I was 19, 20, 21. When I was in college, worked there on the weekends for like 2-3 years. And that's got my first taste of watches. But as I got through school, I went to dental school, practiced dentistry graduated school when I was 30.
Okay.
I practiced for another 10 years after that
Mm-hmm.
until I was 40, and then decided that I liked watches more than I liked dentistry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we slowly, me and my partner Vadim, who I've known since I was 18, we were childhood friends, best friends growing up.
Okay.
Families were super tight, wives super tight.
Yeah.
Decided that we're gonna test the waters and see what we could do with watches.
So, but what kicked it off? Like you said, you started collecting watches in high school.
And just after
High
yeah,
school.
yeah.
What even got you on that kick? Because coming out of high school and into college and saying like, and maybe you didn't say I'm going to be a watch collector, but you're already starting this collection. What kind of got you into saying like where to kick off with the Roadster even?
Well, I'll tell you, when I was working at Tourneau, back then they would give big discounts,
Okay.
employee discounts. So I think once a year I would get like a 70 off employee discount
It's nice.
Wow.
at Cartier. So watches were pretty cheap back then.
Yeah.
So that's where the Cartiers came in. I had a bunch of Cartiers come in.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, it was the natural transition, the progression. I went to a Rolex, and then from a Rolex, I went to an AP, and I went down the line. And then eventually, I picked up a Patek. And
That's a big
Escalated quickly.
that transition took me a couple of years, right?
Yeah.
So by the time I was already, going into dentistry, then I had a decent collection. I had a bunch of APs. I had a couple of Pateks already, because I was working already.
Right.
So I had a decent collection, and then it got to the point where I wanted to trade out my collection.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that's probably where that switch came in from just collecting, which I see a lot of collectors started to do,
Yeah.
especially when the market was great.
Sure.
People went from avid collectors having 10, 15, 20 pieces in their collection to
Yeah.
trading them out
Yep.
and realizing that there was some financial gain to be made,
Absolutely.
especially in the period that we had in
Yeah.
the last 3 or 4 years.
Did you find that very early? Because it's very interesting. Like the hobby has always been a thing for so many years, but the idea of making watches a business
Yeah.
is fairly new.
Very new.
Mm.
I think it didn't commoditize probably until COVID,
Yeah.
right? When me and Vadim started in 17, 18, APs were selling at 30 off.
Mm-hmm.
Pateks were 20, 25 off.
Mhm.
Rolex were all at a discount.
Yeah.
So you can get anything you wanted.
Yeah.
RM was trading at below retail, 20, 30 off below retail.
Wow.
That was 17.
Wow.
In 17, I was buying white Bubbas for 65,000,
Wow.
Wow.
right? Right now, 250 to 300.
Yeah.
Uh,
Crazy.
And that's standard.
Yeah.
You get big discounts on RM. It just wasn't the brand. And then COVID hit and money just started pumping into the economy.
Insane.
And then everybody started to commoditize watches.
Yeah.
And it became tradable.
Yeah. I want to ask you, during that period while you were a practicing
Yeah.
physician, dentist, did you have a community of people that you could talk watches with?
I didn't. I wish
No.
I did.
Mm,
I wish I did.
yeah.
No, it was just my immediate circle of friends, which happened to all love watches,
Yeah.
but nobody to the point where I can say that they had, huge collections.
Yeah. So what transpired where, you and Vadim decided, what happened where it's like, hey, you know what? We both love this thing.
Yep.
Let's start a business and sell watches online.
So the progression was we both had careers. Yeah, he was working full time. I was working full time.
Okay.
I was practicing. And I think it was a package of APs that came up that was like, we bought like 6 APs together.
Okay.
Uh,
So you guys bought this with the intention of selling.
bought with the intention of selling. It was
Okay.
a good price. We got them at like 32 off for like some offshores.
Right.
I think we flipped them at like 28 off, right? There was a delta to be made.
Sure.
There wasn't much left on the table, but we're like, okay, it's sellable.
Mm-hmm.
And it was probably 6 months later that we came into a package of RMs.
Okay.
Also, it was like 3 or 4 RMs. It was that, okay, it's a big nut, but
Yeah.
let's try.
Okay.
So we bought the RMs, and then we saw that some profit was able to be made.
Wow.
And it snowballed from there. It went from 4 watches to 6 to 6 to 8 to 8 to 10.
Yeah.
And then we needed a safe. And then from there, we're like, waited a couple of months, and it was a business.
Wow.
And then back then, nobody was really doing social.
Mm-hmm.
And social took off for us.
Yeah.
So we started Wrist Aficionado page back in 17, 18.
Okay.
And initially we were just wholesaling,
Mhm.
dealer to dealer. It was all B2B.
It's funny. I find that a lot of guys who have their retail businesses today online or even brick and mortar started in wholesale.
Of course, we have to.
Yeah.
It's the fastest way to trade
Mm,
because there's a holding cost to watches.
Right.
And you want to move them quick. The only
Yep.
way to move them quick is to another dealer or
Mm.
wholesaler.
So it's interesting because it sounds like everyone's sort of business model changed along with the culture of buying and selling watches from the consumer perspective,
Correct.
right? So where prior to you would want to sell wholesale because it was more of a volume game,
Sure.
right? And then fast forward to 2018, 2019, prices are rising. You could make a decent sized profit off of 1-2 pieces.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's still a tangible model. A lot of guys still do it.
Mm.
Still sell wholesale. It's a very tangible model and it's still feasible. We just saw that rather than taking, a 2 or 3% margin, maybe we could take a 5% margin on
Right.
things.
Mhm.
And there's a bigger group of people that we could sell to now.
Hmm.
You're limited in the amount of dealers you can sell to.
Yeah.
But when you go to mainstream and you sell to the public, maybe you can sell to almost the same amount of pricing,
Right.
a little bit more margin, and get a broad group of people now buying.
Yeah. When you guys decided to embrace social, were you still doing wholesale?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we started, it was a slow transition into retail because you need to build up the clientele.
Mm-hmm.
You start from 1 client, 2 clients, then you start on IG and people start inquiring. And then you realize, okay, a lot of people are inquiring, let's get a sales team.
Mm.
A lot of people are inquiring, let's get a website.
And this was still around that 2017, 2018
This is
period.
around 2018, yeah.
At what you had something?
Well, it's funny. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
And
please.
I may be jumping the gun, but something that I've noticed in a lot of the guests that we bring on, we kind of channel the same energy, and I always like to use that term of like out the trunk kind of mentality.
hip-hop term. That's exactly what it was, though.
For you guys to kind of go from wholesale to see the future, to go into social, right, where you can touch so many people and then touch them on a personal level, to then go ahead and create a brick and mortar, right? For people that make the adjustment from wholesale to retail, they have a hard time doing such.
Yeah, of course.
Whereas like you guys figured it out very early and were able to reach your consumer, touch them, they can meet you, they
Sure.
can feel you. There's a value proposition in shopping at your showroom because they actually feel like they're a part of something,
Of course.
which is very, very impressive.
Well, I
Yep.
think that's a really great point. And I think where you guys win is because you're also the end user and consumer,
Sure.
right? Like you spent so much time on the opposite end, like collecting and buying watches. You're your own customer.
Of course.
And so to then marry that, understanding your consumer with that hustler's mentality, it's really a match made in heaven. You know exactly how to communicate to your clientele.
For us, I think it was more, we started wholesale and we would have an office on 48th Street.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fine dealing dealer to dealer on 48th Street in a nice office, and we were great. When we started going retail, we found that clients wanted more experiential buying.
Yeah.
And especially when we started selling these bigger pieces, you sell the paddocks and the RMs, people wanted to sit down in a comfortable area.
You want a relationship.
They want a relationship. And they wanted that white glove service.
Yeah.
And we thought we couldn't do it where we were. And we just had to, we outgrew it pretty quick. We were there for maybe a year.
Okay.
It was a great office space, but we needed to go retail. And it was a big risk for us because most people didn't want to go retail.
Yeah.
Separate costs involved, different staff involved, insurances involved. Now your rent goes 10x.
Yeah.
Right? We took a space off of Madison Avenue.
Yeah.
We had 1,000 square feet on 48th Street. It was a big difference for us.
Huge. Yeah.
Huge nut. But the consumer needed it.
Yeah.
And they were much more comfortable in that environment. And we said, if it doesn't work, fine, but we had to try. Because if we wanted to go retail, we had to give the retail client that experience.
Right.
It had to be white glove. It had to be, to the point where if they're buying a $200,000 or $300,000 watch, they needed to feel that they were in an area where they wanted to buy it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think that was our biggest transition, where if we wanted to reach that demographic, we had to substantiate and build it for them.
Right. So you guys build successful wholesale business, move into retail, saying, now it's time, we're going to open brick and mortar. You open your first location, COVID hits.
COVID, first month.
Yeah. What's going through your mind?
It was hard, man. It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. I mean, we thought the world collapsed because it took us 3 months to negotiate our lease, another 6 months to build out. So we were 9 months in paying rent.
Yeah.
And we're like, fuck, we're finally opening.
Yes.
Amazing. And February of 2020, COVID hit and we shut down for a month. Couldn't even go to work. So everyone was home.
Yeah.
And then we had a stock of watches because we were ready.
Yeah.
We're like, we're going
You
retail.
were ready to open.
We had to stock up. Retail's about to open and we closed down and the market tanked like 20%.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
what was going through you guys' mind? Like, what were those conversations
that's
like?
it. I mean, first impression, I'm like, I'm going back to dentistry. Vadim going back to Jacob, and that's it.
Wow.
Going back to work.
Yeah.
But there was a shift. There was a quick shift.
Yeah.
Where
when did you start to notice that shift?
it was like probably April, where confidence came back to the consumer.
Okay.
People were still home.
Right.
They were bored and they started buying.
Yeah.
And then May, June, July, money started being printed.
Okay.
And it was coming from everywhere.
So were these customers resorting to buying online again?
Back to buy online.
Back to online.
Back about. We were still going in once in a while,
Right.
just to fill orders, ship orders.
Sure.
But the online consumers came back.
Okay.
Right.
And were you still, how are you delivering that experience to them now that, because you had this plan, we're going to deliver white glove
Of
service.
course.
We're going to take these relationships to the next level. I'm curious, what was your approach to sort of delivering that to clientele via online?
Couldn't. Couldn't. Initially, we couldn't.
Yeah.
Initially, it was just relationships and people knew that we were open and, we were still there providing services. We didn't close down.
Wow.
So even though the brick and mortar was closed, me and Vadim were still going in, filling orders. A lot of the staff was still home.
Yeah.
Couldn't use them. But it was a month or two. But then once we got back into the swing of things, people started buying and they started buying a lot.
Yeah.
But then the prices started jumping
Yeah.
to the point where we couldn't control it anymore.
Wow.
Right. So they would go up maybe 5% a month. Yeah. Sometimes we would have to cancel orders because we couldn't replace.
Right.
You could sell a watch at 50,000, but your replacement cost could be 55 by the time you sold it already.
Wow.
That was just how fast money was being printed into the economy.
It's funny. We never really considered that part of it with a lot of the dealers that we spoke to, like that period when everything started like coming back up. What it was like sourcing watches and this volatility that existed.
You didn't know.
Yeah.
So nobody knew if it was like a fake jump. If it
Right.
was going to come back down.
Yeah.
Or if it was sustainable.
Wow.
Like everybody knew eventually it was going to come down,
Sure.
but nobody knew it was going to last 2 years.
No.
Yeah, it was nuts.
It was so long.
So, I was doing some homework on you, and you kind of spoke a bit on supply and demand,
Yeah.
and your thought process and how brands kind of control the market. to your benefit, it works for you,
Always.
right? Because you have watches
Of
to
course.
sell.
I
Yes.
need them to be museums.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's your process in terms of like you see the state of the market today?
I think the demand curve will always be there now because brands can't backpedal
Mm.
because they'll hurt themselves. AP can't say, okay, now we have everything available. Come to our stores and buy it.
Yep.
They can't backpedal because then they're going to become a Hublot,
Yeah.
right? Then they'll devalue their brand. So they have to stay that, no, we have a 2-year wait list. Rolex, same way. You can't just go into and get a Daytona, right?
Yes.
Because they'll devalue themselves. Same thing
Mhm.
with Patek.
Yes.
Mhm.
So the fact that they become museums where you can't even try on certain models anymore,
Yeah.
it's always going to benefit us. The only thing that's happening now is that pricing has come down.
Yes.
We needed it to come down.
Yeah.
We needed it to come down. It wasn't realistic. It wasn't sustainable for us or the consumer.
Mhm.
Yes.
I didn't like it when it was so high because my acquisition cost was too high.
It was crazy.
Right. So my dollar was buying half of what it should buy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And same thing with the consumer. They couldn't buy as much anymore.
Mm.
I think everything has come back to sustainable levels now. But I don't think brands can backpedal.
Yeah.
I think the fact that they've become so boutique only and they've stopped distribution.
Yes.
Back when I was starting, the reason I was getting pieces at 30 off because AP had distributors everywhere.
Yes.
So they had suppliers and distributors, which I can buy from. They had a certain quota that they had to buy.
Mm-hmm.
I can buy from them.
Yes.
We get a discount. Great.
Yeah.
They filled.
Yeah.
their
They had to
quota.
move their product.
They have to move the product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had gray market dealers like myself moving their product.
Mm.
And they're okay buying at 35, selling it to me at 30. I sell it at 28 off. And that cycle continues.
Yeah.
Clients happy, we're happy.
Yes.
So now that was pre-pandemic,
That was just about, pre-pandemic.
right?
Yeah.
Because we know that during the pandemic, it's like that old, like, it's one of those things you always see in the mob flicks, right? It was like we got fat while everyone starved kind
Yeah,
of
of
thing,
course.
right?
Yeah, of course.
And when things were really, really good, the brands, I don't want to maybe say the brands themselves, but it almost like being a gray market dealer, it was almost like a negative connotation for a
course.
little bit.
Yeah.
How did that make you guys feel? Because there was a point when, the brands needed you.
Oh,
Then it felt
I
like-
think they still do, yeah.
We know they do now.
Yeah, of course.
We know they do now. So
Yeah.
it's come back to that. And
Of
that's
course.
sort of what I want to get at is what was that period like for you just professionally with the relationships and understanding the business, knowing that someday it's going to come back, but the brands taking this attitude with your clients
Sure.
who are spending good money on watches
Mhm.
and, sure, you got some people who are flipping, but for the most part, collectors are doing what collectors did,
Yep.
right? I buy a watch, I experience that, want to move into something else.
Yep.
What was that like? Can you speak to that?
For us, I think that the relationship that we've had and built with our clients supersedes a lot of the relationships that they've built with these brands. Because
Mm,
a lot of guys that are salespeople,
yeah,
they come and go.
true.
When brands became super hot, when AP became super hot, RM became super hot, a lot of salespeople wouldn't give big collectors time of day,
Mm-hmm.
right? They wouldn't call back. They wouldn't answer phone calls. They wouldn't answer emails.
Yeah,
Put everybody on a wait list. Doesn't matter how much you spent in the
yeah,
pandemic. Everybody was waitlisted now. And it left a sour taste in everybody's mouth,
right.
right? So that kind of helped us as well. Even though it may have had a negative connotation, I think that our core group of clients still trusted us to do what was right for them.
Mhm.
So I don't know if it really hurt us because there's a big group of gray market dealers that have great reputations.
Right.
And I think they always will.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fly by
I think
nights.
there's far more people doing it the right way.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. The community is small.
It is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You're
And it's a business where your word is your bond.
Always.
Right? Like your reputation, you have to guard it with like an iron fist.
always, there's
Like it's
plenty of
everything.
times that if we promise something, whether or not sometimes we lose on it, but
Mm,
we got to come through with it,
right.
right? Because you have to play the long game,
Exactly.
right? So we look at each client. Tons of our clients have become close friends.
That's
That's just a
awesome.
relationship that we build.
Yeah.
Go on vacations with our clients, have dinners with them. It's just the relationships that we build with them.
Yeah.
I don't think that sales associates in a lot of these boutiques have the ability to do that.
Mm.
Not many.
I think it's very hard.
Yeah.
I think it's very hard.
This episode of WCP is sponsored by Bezel, a trusted marketplace for buying and selling watches. With over 18,000 and counting watches listed from both private sellers and professional dealers, you have your pick of the litter from brands like Rolex, AP, Patek, and more. Bezel is one of the highest rated marketplaces for watches. Inside the Bezel app, you can make offers on watches, buy them outright, bid at auction, all with confidence knowing each timepiece is authenticated by an in-house team of experts. For more information, visit getbezel.com or search Bezel in the App Store and download the app today.
In life, there are choices and options. Choices set the tone. Options change the mood. And while you aren't able to drive 2 cars, you can, however, travel with 2 watches. Introducing the Shuttle, a traveling watch case in collaboration with WCP and Wolf. Godspeed.
Available at wristcheckpod.com.
What's very impressive too in visiting your showroom is not only is the build out amazing, your furniture's amazing, but the product.
Thank you.
Yep.
And the product that you that you display is very meticulous, right? Because it's like all the good stuff.
We
Yeah.
try, yeah.
And I've seen pieces like I've seen Ice and Kiesel dials. I've seen turquoise dial Rolexes. I've seen Bubba Watsons. I've seen so many pieces that like even the respected dealers have no access to, which I find to be very impressive. And I wonder, to your point, the relationships that you built, how many people really see the value in what you offer, right? Because there is the negative connotation of a gray market dealer.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of it, you have the ADs who go, no, don't buy gray because the
course.
watch could be compromised.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it's like that. It's this, right? We're fighting you
Of course.
while you're trying to do the right thing
Yeah.
by the people that they're kicking out of the door.
Of course. Listen, for us, our goal was to have enough good inventory in our stores that anybody could try on a model that they want to see. Could be a different dial or whatever, but at least they can have some taste of what they wanted.
Right.
Yeah.
If we had to order a different color, great. If we had to order a chronograph instead of plain, fine, no problem.
Yeah.
But at least you could try something on, which they can't do in a normal boutique.
Yes.
So we go above and beyond to source every piece that we possibly can, and we'll have it in one of our stores. If somebody comes into New York and it's in Miami, we'll ship it over to New York so they can try it on.
Mhm.
If it's in Beverly Hills, we'll ship it over to Beverly Hills. We'll work that way.
Yeah.
But it was important for us to kind of touch these points in New York, Miami, and Beverly Hills, so people can actually see that we do have these boutiques. We don't do, I think, a good enough job at showing people that we have these stores, and that's probably the low-hanging fruit for us, where we can go out there and actually show people, yes, we do have boutiques. You can come in, you can try everything on,
Mhm.
and we're happy to do so.
Yes.
A lot of people are hesitant because they still think that we saw those offices on 48th Street.
Yes.
But and that's probably our fault. We don't convey that enough. Now, I wish we would probably put that forward a little more and show our stores more. We're trying to on social media. But
Yeah. Well, and then I think, the other interesting thing about your business, you talked about, these 3 locations. So you've since expanded,
Yep.
right? You have New York, Miami,
And Beverly. Yeah.
and Beverly Hills. But you don't only sell watches anymore today.
Correct.
You've diversified your product offering,
Yeah.
which I think is brilliant,
Yes.
right? And I think, makes a great argument for more people to come into store,
Sure.
right? Because if I'm shopping with the family,
Correct.
my wife, maybe grandma's rolling around with us, and
Yeah.
she wants something nice, you guys now sell handbags.
Yep.
And not just anything. I mean, again, it's like top of the cream. You guys are selling Birkins, different Hermet, like
That's
the
it.
Kelly, all that stuff. You guys are ventured into jewelry
Jewelry also.
as
yep.
well. How has that positively impacted your business? And have you seen any differences and changes, maybe growth in the clientele because of those changes?
Growth 1,000%.
Yeah.
Just running our numbers, we saw at year end that 94% of our buyers were male.
Wow.
And we realized that we're leaving out a huge chunk of retail buyers.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always, and even though women do buy for themselves, a lot of the times the end consumer is still the male.
Yes.
We saw that very often. They're buying,
Especially in the luxury market. Yeah.
high-end luxury, yes.
Yes.
So then we opened up our bag division where we started doing the Hermes bags, and we saw that women were avid collectors of these bags. And even when males were buying gifts for their significant other, they would much prefer to go to a bag a lot of times
Yep.
than go to a watch.
Yeah.
So that was an easy transition for us.
Mm.
And it's a lot less expensive for us to stock up on an inventory of bags.
I really think this is brilliant
Yeah.
because it sounds like a layup, and it is. But I think it's smart that you guys were able to recognize this so early because if you're a married man,
Yes.
and you're buying gifts,
Yep.
the last thing I want to do is walk into a bag store.
Yeah, of
or
course.
I'm totally fine with just going to. I want to look at some watches,
Yeah.
but I also know if I come home with a watch, I might give my
something else. You gotta have something else.
because
Yeah.
where's the, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, where's mine?
So I think this was an incredible pivot.
Yeah.
Whose idea was that?
I think it was.
This is a
ours.
collective strategy.
Yeah, it was. It was. We have another partner in Miami.
Yep.
That took the reins on the bag boutique. His name was William. He was with us over there, and he kind of took a hold of that business and started it, and he ran with it over there, and we were able to grow it as to the point where we have any given time maybe 150 bags.
Mm. And so what has this done now for you in terms of like the hiring process for these 3 locations? Like you come from watches, you
Yep.
kind of know where to source the people who are educated in timepieces. Are you looking for people who, have access to information and maybe understanding that cross these several different verticals? Or are you looking for people who are dialed into each specific category?
With the watches, I need people that know watches.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy to find.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a very small niche. With the bags, when we hire for bags, anybody I think that has experience in the luxury retail market,
You can train them up.
they can be trained with the bag.
Yeah, yeah.
And especially a lot of these women, they really love bags anyway.
Mm,
So for them, it comes natural.
mm.
They can sit there and learn about these bags and the colors and the sizes and the different leathers. It's really an easy transition for a lot.
Yeah.
The watches is more difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. Finding experienced salespeople in watches has been a little bit harder for us.
You know what I find to be very impressive as well with all 3 of your locations, you're very, very meticulous in real estate.
Yeah.
In choosing where you
Oh, you know where to be. Yeah, he knows where to be.
you know where to be. And for, and I think in terms of being a gray market dealer, you're so much beyond that because you're stepping into luxury buildings, luxury hotels. I mean, I don't know where else is next. I don't know if it's airports, if it's
It's funny. I'm glad you made a point, and I'd like to hit on that. I'm sorry to interrupt.
no,
but,
please.
Not only knowing where to be, but the gray market dealer, I think, especially for watch collectors, for serious watch collectors who want to learn more, right? If you go into an authorized dealer, it's kind of the same show everywhere you go, right? Because they know what's going to impact their bottom line, and they're so big, they need to move a lot of it.
Sure.
I often find that, vintage dealers, gray market dealers, I don't get the opportunity to walk into many brick and mortar locations, but I talk to these guys fairly often. One of the main reasons why I really enjoy speaking with them is because of the discovery. And I'm able to speak with someone who can introduce me to something new.
Sure.
I want to take a second to talk about the independents. What do you carry as far as independent brands? What is the clientele or the community that frequent Wrist Aficionado?
Yep.
What is their experience with you and inquiring about independent brands, learning about independent brands? What are you seeing as far as the market from that perspective with the curiosity about these
So
brands?
I can't say that we're huge on indies,
Okay.
but we do have a good chunk. I mean, Journe, we sell a good amount. I'm a big fan of Grubel,
Oh, I love them.
one of my favorites. I wish they had the marketing dollars to become what they should be.
I love them.
And man, if I would be able to help any brand, it would be that brand because
Yes.
I really believe that they have a great product.
They really do.
Longas we sell, but again, since prices came down,
Mm.
demand has come down.
Yeah.
See, on a lot of these indies also.
Mm.
When supply was low and demand was high on Patek Rolex, AP, RM, everything went up with it.
Yeah.
GPs were going up.
I remember.
No reason.
I've seen L'Oreal's everywhere.
L'Oreal's everywhere. People buying L'Oreal above retail.
Yes.
Should never happen.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what the market's
I'm
like.
glad you said that.
I remember I used to call retailers asking for L'Oreal's, and there was a wait list. I said,
Yeah.
they never pictured being a wait list. They couldn't believe it themselves.
Yeah, I know.
But they've come down now,
Yeah.
right? And everything's come to reality. Come down. You know, Vacherona's come down.
So how do you think an independent brand can win in this market? I mean, obviously, you have those that rode the wave and now they're in a really good place, even if prices have come down,
Of course.
right? But for some of these other brands, how can they gain momentum with your clientele?
Listen, I think limited stock,
Mm,
you know, keeping production low, you know, a couple hundred pieces a year
yeah.
at max. Doing limited edition runs, you know, doing a couple of them a year, and marketing. You know,
Yeah.
it's a marketing play.
Mm.
You know, I think any of these indies can do well if they had a good marketing structure.
I agree with that. I also think, you know, and what I'm curious about, if I were running one of these independent brands, I would get close to guys like you.
Mhm.
I would get close to the gray market
Agreed.
dealers, right? How do we bring you into our strategy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do we control these prices?
I mean, if it was me, if I was an indie, I would target only people like myself because it's
Yeah.
what I push, and what people like myself push
100%.
is what is seen on social all
Yes.
day long.
Mm-hmm.
And I think social is probably 80% of the battle,
Mm.
right? Because I don't see a lot of people going to print ads and magazines and
Not anymore.
not
No.
anymore, right? So
Mm-mm.
it's all social.
It's all social.
And you want to get in the eyes of the people that are watching.
Yeah.
And I think the gray market dealers, if they're pushing, if all the gray market's pushing, and a lot of it's inter-dealer also,
Yeah.
you know, from one dealer to the next. You know, a watch
Mhm.
can touch a gray market dealer 3 times before it touches
Sure.
an end market,
Yeah.
an end client. So it's just a matter of getting in front of them. And you can't really incentivize, but you have to make just cool shit
Yeah.
people want to push.
Facts.
yeah. And
it's
it-
like it's so simple, and many of them have forgotten that
seems simple.
part.
Yeah, it's just don't make a lot of them.
Yep.
You know, make a limited quantity run, put them in the right hands.
Yes.
You know, put them in, you know, in the right celebrity hands. You know, it doesn't
you-
always have to go on a Khaled or.
It doesn't, but I think that's an excellent, and that's something that RM has done so incredibly well
Masters.
Yes.
over the last
Masters.
20 something years. I really
Masters.
think they're
Yeah.
an excellent case study for this because they
They wrote the
mastered
playbook.
Yeah.
every single part.
Yeah, but I don't even know how they do it to where they all hit. How do the Nadals hit? How does the Bubba hit?
Yeah, no.
Every athlete that they choose is just
Yeah.
it's just a hit.
And the thing is too, like some of the people that you see wearing RMs, like they're famous
Mhm.
athletes and probably at the top of their game. But for people that don't know, you might have to Google this person.
Yeah, of
And you're like, oh shoot, like
Well,
this is
I think
top
that's
tier.
a really great strategy from the brand's perspective too, because it's almost like they're curating their ambassadors.
100%.
Yes.
And it just seems that much more authentic. You can't even question it at that
100%.
point.
I mean, they're gonna keep branching. I mean, if I was an indie, I would attack brand like I would go to pickleball.
Yeah.
I would get a pickleball or
Facts.
a paddle ambassador.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yo, get those 2 brands.
Mm-hmm.
Find the top 5 guys
Yeah.
and just put them on their wrist.
Hell yeah.
Forget about you're not going to go after basketball and baseball anymore. You can't get the Philip Mosses anymore.
It's done.
You can't afford them.
No.
These brands can't afford them. Go to pickleball.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's enough people are watching it to where get number 5, 6, 7, 8. Maybe they'll win one day.
Yeah.
That's a good strategy.
Very true.
Let me ask you, what does the you guys have had a lot of success. I think the story is awesome. You know, understanding the ebb and flow of your business, making the pivots at the right time, staying consistent. Now you have these 3 locations. What does the future hold for Wrist Aficionado?
Listen,
What do we have to look forward
in
to?
an ideal world, I would, I think our goal is to keep opening stores.
Yeah.
Whether it's a store a year or hopefully maybe 2 stores a year, whatever it may be. The goal is always to keep opening.
Yeah.
And it's to keep opening in these high-end luxury markets.
Mm.
But a lot of times we have to pull ourselves back because we realize we have to crawl before we can run.
Yeah.
So as long as our back end and infrastructure, and we do a lot of work building our infrastructure and building our, back end office in New York, because a lot of our staff's in New York, and
Mhm.
a lot of it, Command Central is in New York. And we keep building up our staff and our social and our media team and our photography team, and it takes a lot. And I
Yeah.
realize the more stores we open, the more we stretch ourselves thin.
Mm.
And, we realize that if we can build our back end, our back office, and have our systems and processes in place, then that's all easy. It
Yeah.
makes it that much easier.
Yeah.
So I think getting our systems and processes right, and then the people will flow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but I think high-end luxury markets is always going to be Hotels is great for us. We like that model a lot.
Yep.
It's just a matter of picking the right demographic in the right market. I don't mind competing with brands. I don't mind competing with other gray market dealers. I think competition is necessary
Mhm.
and it's healthy.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of picking the right spots, picking the right markets. Yeah.
The next thing I want to ask, you're still obviously a collector.
Yep.
What's on your radar right now? What is Eddie looking at? Because we're always, I know we keep a
Yeah.
file of something in our phone.
So
Couple screenshots.
I'm
Yeah.
a big paddock guy.
Okay,
I love paddocks. I mean, listen, in an ideal world, I would have big grand comps.
sure,
But I'm still a basic guy where I like 5711s.
sure.
5740s,
Okay.
one of my favorites ever. 59.
5740 is a great watch. I mean, I'm all about a perpetual calendar.
Love.
Yeah.
Love. I think there's good value in like 5270s
Yeah.
in paddock. You know, you can get them relatively cheap, right? You get them so far under retail.
This is something I've been telling a lot of people recently too, is like the prices on grand comps right now, it's
Yeah.
like,
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
it doesn't make any sense.
It's like 80,000 below retail.
It's crazy.
And they'll pop. They'll come back up.
I think always.
They have to.
Yes.
You can get a full gold 5270 for under 150, where retail is like 230.
Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's good value.
Yeah, it is.
You know, the green 5270, also a beautiful
It's a
piece.
beautiful watch.
50K below retail.
That's insane.
It's a lot. It's
Wow.
getting a lot of watch.
Yeah.
It's a lot of value.
Mhm.
So I'm very strong on paddock. RM, I still love.
Yeah.
I think it's very wearable.
Mm-hmm.
Rolexes, I like gem sets.
Okay.
Yeah. I like colors on my watches.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of anything gem set paddock or Rolex.
Yeah.
Like ruby day dates. I love.
What's the craziest thing you saw this year come through your shop?
We had a Ferrari a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
Wow.
The RM.
RM Ferrari. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot thinner than you would even think, right? So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did a couple of videos on that in our store. I mean, super thin.
Yeah.
2 credit cards worth.
Mm.
And it's amazing just to see it wind, see it run.
Yeah.
I mean, it's expensive.
What's the
Like
The-
195 at retail. At
1.9?
Yeah, 1.95 at retail.
Wow.
That's retail. What is the aftermarket?
1.5. It's below.
Oh, it's below.
Yeah.
So, Eddie, that's it's good that you mentioned that, because we know that the Ferrari is very, very limited, right? How are your clients feeling about parting with these pieces, or like what's their relationship like with the brands? Like, is that frowned upon? Like,
It is.
how is that?
It is. I think all brands want their clients to keep watches as long as possible, right? And they strike the fear of God into these people.
Yeah, they do.
Right? You sell, you're blacklisted, and a lot of guys do get blacklisted.
They do.
Mm.
I think with RM, they become a lot more lenient with it
Mm.
because they've upped their production and they need to sell pieces.
Yeah.
So they've definitely become lenient with it. I think AP is still kind of has a grasp on the clients because it's electronic, and if you re-register, you run the risk of getting blacklisted.
Yeah.
You know, clients run that risk sometimes.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but you run that risk. But RM is pretty straightforward.
Mm.
Guys do still flip even big RMs.
Yeah.
It's still a game that RM plays.
Mm.
You got to buy a piece to get a piece.
Yeah.
Buy a piece to get a piece.
Yeah.
And it's almost a wash. You
But
buy
I
what you
kind of,
really-
it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like, you bought the watch, you should do
Whatever
you
you want.
with
Yeah,
it.
it's your
But
product.
But I also kind of understand the argument where it's like, there's probably like 7 other, in the case of the Ferrari, it's probably maybe 100 other people that also wanted that watch.
Yeah.
So I kind of understand, because I remember even the days when I was in retail, these are some of the conversations I would have with clients. It's like, listen, I get it.
It's a balance.
You do what you want, but there's so many other people that,
I think there's going to be a tipping point, and I think probably AP is going to hit that tipping point before everybody else,
really,
where the client's going to get too pissed off,
mm,
and with the restrictions,
yeah.
some guys
And just altogether like stop buying.
and they'll just go to a different brand.
Yeah.
Mm.
If I'm buying 10 watches a year from you,
Yeah.
spending $500,000 or $1 million, whatever the number may be,
Right.
you shouldn't have the ability to tell me when
That's true.
I can buy and sell my watches,
It's true.
Mhm.
right? And especially I'm buying them at retail. There's no more discounts.
No, there is.
They're buying them at retail. They're buying them at full pop,
Yeah.
and they're still being controlled.
Yeah.
Give me 40% off.
Wild time.
Tell me what to do.
Yeah.
If I'm paying full retail, then I should have the ability to pick and choose when I want to sell.
Yeah. Let me ask you, kind of wrapping up here, what are you most looking forward to this year in watches before the end of the year?
I would like to see, as far as the industry in total, I like to see I think it's stable. So pricing obviously is big for us,
Right.
right? And I've seen prices kind of stabilize over the last, call it 4 to 6 months,
Mhm.
to where it's a great entry point. And I would like to see a lot more buyers come back into the market
Yeah.
that were priced out. Because everyone's still kind of hesitant. What's going to happen with the market, the stock market, the real estate market?
Yeah, everyone is
what's
kind
happening
of
with
like
rates? Right,
uncertain right
until
now.
election time, I think everyone's a little.
Yeah.
But I think we've gotten a ton more clients back in
Mm,
that were priced out before,
yeah.
and rightfully so. I think it's a great time for people to come back in.
Yeah, I think so
And
too.
I would just like to see more of these guys that are kind of on the sidelines for a while,
Yeah.
because I do see stability and I do see an uptick going to come.
Mm.
I think once rates come down, once crypto goes up,
Yep.
and it will,
It's going to.
it has to. I'm a big proponent of crypto. I mean,
Same.
I'm a big believer.
Same.
Yeah, I'm crypto long.
Let's go.
Yeah,
Diamond
it has
hands.
to be. Diamond hands, man. I hodl everything, man. I refuse to sell anything.
Yes.
So I think that there will be a big push, and I think watches as an asset class will always be there
Yeah.
because it was created as an asset now.
Yep.
In the last couple of years, and it'll stay as an asset.
I think so too.
and it has a lot of tradability and liquidity.
I couldn't agree more. I think since the consumer's mind is pivoted to that point, you
You can't
doesn't-
undo it.
It doesn't go
You
back.
cannot undo it.
It doesn't
They've
go
seen it
back.
already. Yeah.
Yeah.
So once these guys have seen that there's liquidity and it's transactionable, and I can buy and sell pretty quick.
Yep.
It's gonna always stay. It's gonna always stay there. And I can only see an uptick
Yeah.
because I don't see markets. Listen, we could have a correction everywhere. Who knows?
Sure.
Everything could correct.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, it's still a tangible asset that you're holding.
And still, to be honest, the market is still much higher than it was in
100%.
2017.
100%.
Yes.
Even though it's come down, it's still
Certain pieces are still.
yeah.
Go call it a Bubba, right? Bubba was 70K back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
It is.
Yeah, it's still a 4x. from where it was.
100%.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not 6x,
Yeah.
but a lot of pieces are still high.
Yeah.
They're still, you still can't get any Paddock, Nautilus, and Aquanaut at retail
Nope.
where you were getting discounts back then.
Crazy.
So it's still high,
Mm.
but it's still a good entry.
Yeah.
I think it's a good time for people who want to invest into watches long term to come in.
Yeah.
And I'll tell people, don't just do it as an investment. Buy it because you want to wear it.
Exactly.
That's it. Buy it because you love it.
Yeah.
You like the piece.
It's
you
a
love it.
hobby that gives back.
That's it.
Yes.
Unless it's a Loretto. Unless you're buying GPS.
We got to find a GP collector.
Yes.
They're out there.
I know they're out there. I know there's some guy who's got. I got every Laureato.
You know, it's
Right?
funny. I know that one guy. I know that
We
one
gotta
guy.
meet him.
Yeah, I'll bring him in one day.
Okay, yeah, we got to set the introduction.
I know that one guy.
Eddie, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for
gentlemen.
joining
I
us this
appreciate you guys.
evening.
Yes.
Much
Appreciate
appreciated.
you guys.
We got to come back and do this again, but next time at Wrist
I would love to,
Aficionado.
man. I would love to. Hopefully by our 4th location, man, we'll do something there.
That would be awesome.
That would be
There you
amazing.
go.
Yes. Listen, for those watching and listening, you know where to find us at wristcheckpod.com. We're also on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and maybe one day
In the metaverse.
we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Love it.
Take it easy.
Peace.